Clouds.
Those aren't clouds, Daddy. Those are chemtrails.
Chemtrails? What are chemtrails?
Chemical trails, Daddy, and they're very bad.
Put the rumors to rest. Gotta help the children and give it our best can. Stand around and be blind to the frost can. Taking no more, how can they relax? I look up to the sky. Can you tell me why? Can you tell me why? I don't wanna see you cry. I just wanna see you smile. Baby, I look up to the sky. Can you tell me why? Can you tell me why? I don't wanna see you die. I just wanna see your smile, baby. Living on earth, we must respect the earth. Human and animal, we all deserve the right to preserve the community. Nowadays we are blind, we can't.
Hi, this is Dane Wigington with GeoEngineeringWatch.org radio for the week of September 6th, 2014. I apologize for my absence last week at a speaking event. I'll get to that in a minute. We do have Russ today, as always. Wouldn't have a show without him. Greg Dallin also with us. Greg, hugely helpful all the time, especially this week, with putting up a billboard. I'll get to that in a minute as well. Lots going on. Again, things unfolding at an ever faster pace all around the globe. And the climate engineers interfering with virtually everything, every weather system. Nothing's untouched, nothing's untainted. They continue to absolutely pound down the Earth's attempt to cool itself with hurricanes that continually try to form in the Atlantic basin but are not allowed to form. In fact, very unprecedented Hurricane Dolly tried to reform 3 times as it was continually saturated with aerosols. The planet's life support systems, again, continue to be completely hampered from top to bottom. Another interesting point that I'll be talking more about in a lot of disseminations coming up, the relative humidity, atmospheric relative humidity dropping since the late 40s, as did what before was a continual temperature rise from the 1850s after the Industrial Revolution really started. In the late 40s, right when climate engineering really began to ramp up, we see relative humidity dropping, and we see a very anomalous and inexplicable temperature drop, which had climate scientists puzzled. By the time we got to the 70s, they weren't sure what was happening because nobody knew these aerosol programs were going on, and they had an initial quite profound effect on cooling the atmosphere, but they also dropped the relative humidity, and that's part of their goal. Important for people to understand that. Water vapor is a greenhouse gas, but it does a lot of good things that inevitably help cool the planet, and this is the tunnel vision of the geoengineers. They look at this in a very compartmentalized fashion. So anyway, relative humidity dropping since the late 40s. I'll be posting graphs on that soon, which is very telling. This is completely impossible with the laws of physics without some unknown component, which is geoengineering. As the planet warms, it must carry more water vapor in the atmosphere, but it's not because of the climate engineering particulates in the atmosphere. So we have polar vortexes coming back again. They're already talking about it. They're certainly planning on doing it, and the atmosphere is stratifying. It's important people understand this. That's how they can achieve these very profound cold temperatures in isolated regions on the ground. It's a very shallow layer of cold. Cold air is dense, sits on the ground, just like, again, the freezer in your market that's got an open top. Cold air just sits there. So it has a lot of people pretty confused, but the areas that they're able to cool down are shrinking rapidly. Oceans stratifying also. Again, when you knock out the cyclonic rotations in places, it stops the mixing of the oceans. It's very unhealthy. Oceans are dying everywhere. The energy balance of the planet is being completely disrupted. And people need to understand that term. It's important. The energy balance. That means that there's an equilibrium between the amount of thermal energy that comes into the atmosphere and the amount that is reflected back out. Once you upset that balance, and it's horribly upset at this point, then the entire equilibrium of the planet begins to spiral out of control. That's happening now. Finally, had a methane warning this week that is at least closer to the mark, because scientists, I don't really have the words to describe most of the scientific community. I mean, pathetic is one that comes to mind, and I know there's exceptions, but taken as a whole, the entire scientific community falls into the category of pathetic, in my opinion, because there seems to be no honor there, with few exceptions, very few exceptions. That they would, an example I've given before, and it's accurate. They would have to watch a house burn to the ground and analyze the ashes for 50 or 100 years before they would say, yeah, that was a fire. Why do we need scientists when they're that completely dysfunctional? Why do we need them? It's the PhDs that have brought us to the edge of total extinction at this point. So as they continue to lie or be threatened into whatever position they take, the nails are pounded in our collective coffins every single day. So the scientific community needs to find their honor before there's nothing left to salvage. And we have independent news sites, many, many independent news sites, so-called independent news sites that are completely off base with so many things. And now, of course, they're trumpeting the cool downs as if it's natural. No word of geoengineering, no acknowledgement of climate engineering, and some of these sites are doing, frankly, exactly what the power structure wants them to do. Exactly what they want them to do. And we need to try to hammer these sites. People should email them. They should try to get them to acknowledge the elephant in the room of climate engineering, because these sites that are pretending the climate is natural and the records of these cool downs that are engineered are normal. This is simply towing the line for the insanity. Now, back to the scientific community. Finally, articles out again this week on the methane, by the way, the warning that scientists finally put out this week, that on this current track, this is the frontline Arctic methane scientists, on this track, there will be no life left on planet Earth by 2040. That's not very long. And in fact, the northern hemisphere is significantly ahead of that schedule. That's for the entire planet, and that life would be on the southern hemisphere able to sustain itself longer than the northern hemisphere. So our situation is extremely near term. People need to understand this. And so many people are sitting on the bench still, activists I know, people I know who know the climate engineering is going on. They know that the walls are closing in from every angle, but they continue to do nothing. Maybe once a month they might watch a video and pretend they're helping, but we need people to actually help every single day. So back to the scientists again on the plants and species extinction rate, by the way. Finally, they've acknowledged in recent articles in the last week that the die-off is happening much faster than they thought. In fact, 10 times faster than they thought. And that's about 10 times short of what it really is. Now they're admitting that the species extinction rate is about 1,000 times background extinction. It's actually about 10,000 times background extinction. Maybe they'll get to that figure at some point, but they're always behind the curve, radically behind the curve. So we are exceeding the species extinction rate exponentially of even the KT extinction, the Cretaceous period. So right now we're in total freefall to a planet with no life, complete freefall. And other news that's not reported around the globe, as our meteorologists talk about the cold back east and the cold records and so forth, the heat records are still falling everywhere, but our media doesn't talk about it. Japan heat wave, this is a new headline. More than 40,000 people were brought to hospitals to be treated for heat stroke, and 54 have died. So this is happening in Japan right now. Where's the headline on this? Why does nobody talk about it? It's not part of the agenda, and this is where, again, climate engineering activists need to connect the dots. Connect the dots. This is what the media structure wants right now, is people to be confused about the climate, to have division, for people to not recognize that these cool downs are completely geoengineered. The planet is, in fact, in total meltdown, and climate engineering is making it worse. Important to, again, think non-dichotomously in this situation. Yes, they can create these radical cool downs, but at the cost of a worsened overall warming. That's how the equation fits together. So people need to connect those dots so we transfer information credibly. How about Canada? Canada, this is a headline from 2 days ago. Snow hits Alberta as heat wave rolls east. Well, isn't that interesting? We have an actual heat wave in Canada while it's snowing a stone throw away, with temperatures in the teens. Temperatures in the teens at the same time there were 110 in California. This is absolutely unprecedented, and it's completely unnatural. Here's part of the headline. Winter arrived extra early in southern Alberta. They make the headlines about that, of course, not talking about all the heat waves everywhere. But in this case, this article did. Just as the late summer heat wave hit central and eastern Canada, doesn't that strike people as just a little bit odd? Half the country under heat wave and half of it under freak record cold snowstorms. The situation's radically out of control, and our collective reality is getting more dire by the day. Drivers on Highway 22 South Calgary got their first taste of winter driving Wednesday morning after a light blanket of snow fell overnight, followed by a light rain. In the meantime, other parts of Canada fried under a heat wave. So this is, again, this is astronomically out of balance, and people need to realize this. Now, in California, as they continue to absolutely bake and dry our state to the ground, scientists warn of decades-long mega drought in California. Now, this is just conditioning for the population that they are going to continue to geoengineer this state right into a dust bowl. There's nothing natural about this, and back to the scientific community. How can they possibly look themselves in the mirror while they are silent about what is nothing short of weather warfare? I don't understand this. I truly don't. The job doesn't matter. The pension doesn't matter. None of that matters. Honor matters. Doing what's right matters. Being able to look your children in the eyes matters. Where is the honor in this community? And I long for the day when we have this issue out in the open, so every single one of these so-called academics that have helped to hide the greatest and most destructive crime in human history, where they are forced to explain their part in this crime, helping to hide it. And it is their part. And this is absolutely inexcusable. And these people in academia should be emailed, they should be sent data, and they should be called onto the mat. Why are you lying? Why are you lying? And we're trying in Northern California to get the Channel 7 top meteorologist, chief meteorologist he calls himself, we are trying to force him into a public debate on this issue. He has so far refused. No reason to think he's not going to keep refusing, but we have a petition going to try to put public pressure on him. He simply patently denies this is going on, won't talk to anybody about it, and it's inexcusable. It's not okay. It's absolutely not okay. So, and even within our own community, we seem to have people who are more concerned about fighting for whatever reason than doing something for the cause. Now, I spoke last weekend at it's called Wind River Casino in Northern California. What's interesting, and I'm not going to go into any names or individuals, but what's interesting, there seemed to be a couple activists that were, for whatever reason, hell-bent on me not speaking there. And it's quite interesting that the fire alarm was triggered in that whole casino at exactly 1 p.m., exactly my speaking time, full casino evacuation, emergency vehicles everywhere, and this is interesting. That, you know, and we don't. It's being investigated. I know that, but is this what it's come to? And if people who truly care about this issue, we should all help move the ball forward. Period. That's what we should be doing every day. Period. Moving the ball forward, standing on credible data, not very fringe notions of what's going on, but hard facts. Let's stand on hard facts. This issue should be kept simple so people can digest it. We're all being sprayed every single day. And by the way, if anybody who hasn't seen the billboard that Greg Palin paid for putting up, and he's done an incredible job. He's put a lot of these billboards up. Really the best one yet, I think, and has got the most attention so far. If you haven't seen it, take a look. It's on GeoEngineering Watch and posted elsewhere, but great billboard. And it is starting to make a huge difference. And with everybody working in the same direction and not complicating the message or diluting our credibility with things that don't belong in this battle. So let's all keep it simple. We're being sprayed day in and day out. People from all political stripes understand the gravity of that. If we keep a simple, straightforward, factual message, we will gain traction. We'll continue to gain traction. So let's focus our efforts there and consider the fact that when the crash comes, and we are perilously close, I believe, based on all available data, to a complete overturning of the paradigm we've known. It can't not happen. If you see a car going 100 miles an hour and it's 10 feet from impact into a solid concrete wall, although you can't say exactly where those pieces are going to fly, you can say that no application of the brakes is going to stop what's coming. And in this case, in regard to humanity, not only are we not hitting the brakes, we're hitting the accelerator. So this crash is absolutely inevitable, short of some unforeseen divine intervention. And I don't say that lightly. I don't know what's out in the cosmos. I truly don't. I mean, I hope that we're not alone in this mess, but at face value, I can say that what we should all be doing is focusing on what makes the most sense. Whatever's out there or not, we should do what we know is right because it's the right thing to do. So I can't see any scenario based on facts and data under which our current paradigm is not going to crash, and soon. But we could still take a quantum leap in the right direction if we could expose and stop climate engineering. If the planet's able to sustain life, we'll have something to work with. We have something to try to rebuild. If it can't sustain life, we have nothing. And I would argue this, and this is what a lot of people don't realize as they're going about their normal lives, going on cruises and tailgate parties at football games. The crash will come with blinding speed. Blinding speed. It won't be some warning off on the horizon, by the way, you have 12 months to get your act together. It's not going to happen that way. The power structure is doing everything they can to keep the appearance of normalcy, because people have an extremely strong normalcy bias, look that one up, until the last second, at which time this will come again with blinding speed. I went, when I was, it's about 3 decades ago, people might remember the pyramid schemes that circulated, where there was this pyramid and you had 32 spaces on the bottom, then 16, then 8, then 4, then 2, then 1. People signed up on the bottom with $1,000. 500 went to the person on top, 500 to the person on the next line. And so, obviously, if somebody on the top is getting $500 apiece from 32 people, that's $16,000. Now, they're not selling anything. It's just simply a pyramid. So these big meetings where everybody was euphoric that they're all going to get their money, and these speakers saying, we're all going to get our money, it's all going to keep going, everybody's going to get rich. How incredibly ludicrous could that be? And I went to these meetings because it was so profound to me that this could be going on. I wanted to see it for the psychological aspect of it. And huge rooms full of people with everybody buying into this nonsense until the moment the facade was pulled back, they crashed instantly. Instantly. The moment that euphoric, non-rational attitude was dried up, instant crash. And that's exactly what we'll have with our society. And the power structure knows it. It's a snake eating its own tail. It can't go on, it won't go on, and it's near its end. So the bottom line is we all need to focus on something, and I would argue that's why we're all in this particular fight. The geoengineering is the gaping hole in the bottom of the boat. It's the one we must fix, or the boat will go down and nothing matters. So I hope everybody, again, focuses on credible information. And Greg, as we come on, I would like to talk some more about this communication that you had. I had a little bit with this person on the inside. I'm going to disclose that letter in another day or two, and I'd like your take on some of your final conversations with that person, which we'll leave anonymous. But it shows what the mentality is on the inside, and that these people believe they have the right to play God, to be God. And with every single day, with all the news and how dire it is, I hope everybody doesn't become paralyzed with that, but rather uses it as a fuel to get in the fight and to do the right thing because it's the right thing to do, no matter how dark the horizon looks. Nobody's had any guarantee of anything ever in human history. But right now, if we all pull together, we could truly make the most profound changes if we don't sit the bench. So, Greg, Russ, I know you guys are both there, and Greg, if you can tell the audience, I want you to elaborate on what we talked about off the air. That this question you kept asking this person who's on the inside, was an architect in the climate engineering programs. The question you asked him again, which he refused to answer.
Yeah, the simple question is, how does this geoengineering tie to any type of a eugenics or depopulation agenda? I have been to the Georgia Guidestones in Elberton, Georgia, 288,000 pounds of granite. Number one tenet carved in those stones is maintain world population at 500 million or less. Obviously, that would be a vast reduction from our current population. Number two, John Holdren's book, Eco Science, whereby he states that ideal world population should be 1 billion or less. statements by globalists like Ted Turner advocating 75% population reduction, and Prince Philip saying that he would like to return as a virus in his next life to accomplish 90% population reduction. Those things taken together paint a pretty scary picture for where we're headed. And then when you take that in combination with the fact that sodium fluoride is causing cancer and a 20-point IQ drop, no doubt it's planned. If you study history and study the history of the IG Farben Corporation in conjunction with the Ford Foundation, they gave sodium fluoride to Nazi prisoners of war to make them docile and controllable. But it's also killing us via cancer. Harvard came out with that last year. The mercury in the vaccines, the Roundup in the food, the GMO. So my question to him, Dane, again was, how could this not be related to the depopulation agenda or eugenics agenda? No answer. First time around, asked the same question again. Second time around, no answer. No answer to that very distinct question that I placed to him. So, again, I think common sense would dictate that there's no doubt that this bare minimum, and he used the term air pharmacology, it has air pharmacology implications, the idea of, further dumbing us down and sickening us. But the question is, are they literally trying to kill us? And it seems to me there's a lot of evidence there, Dane and Russ, that that's exactly what is going on.
I mean, this person I truly believe to be who he said he was. I recognize his name from documents. He reached out to you so people know how he came about. He reached out to you because he felt you were credible. Certainly he made a good decision on that. And I appreciate that you connected us. So in his dialogue, which I will post tomorrow or Monday, is quite telling. And it indicates the mindset of these people, that they believe it is not just their right, but their responsibility to determine who lives, who dies, where it rains, where it doesn't. I mean, this is the sort of psychotic mentality we have in these inner circles, and this is why we've ended up in the place we've ended up. And on the population issue, and I know there's a lot of sensitivity on this, and I've gotten a lot of flack from it, but I'm simply going to stick to the facts. I'm going to stick to the data, period. It's not about ideology for me. It's not about wishful thinking or happy thoughts. It's about reality. We've had too much wishful thinking and happy thoughts. That's why we've ended up in this position. It's okay to be optimistic, but optimistic is much better fueled with action and reality instead of delusion.
So, Dane, when you stand in front of the Georgia Guidestones, somebody spent a lot of money, and when you do the research, who spent the money? It was a guy by the name of pseudonym of R.C. Christian. But you very quickly come to a dead end after doing research on that topic, built on the Mullinax Farm in Elberton, Georgia. But very creepy because it's out in the middle of nowhere. There's a time capsule buried. Elbert County Sheriff's cameras surrounding it, which is kind of odd, out in the middle of nowhere, tells me that the power structure, the NWO, New World Order type power structure, is directly involved in this.
Yeah, I think they're involved in anything at the higher level at this point. And, and back to, again, a lot of this centers back to population. It is a very sensitive subject for people. And Russ, I mean, in your circles, do you ever hear any people talking about population as an issue, ever?
I hear people talking about the geoengineering being in part for population control.
Do you hear people talking about that they feel, aside from that fact, and I agree with you on that, but how many people in your circle believe that population is a problem?
How many in my circle believe that population is a problem? I think it's split. Many people do believe it is, and other people believe it isn't.
Here's where, this is where the power structure, I believe, is still in many ways responsible for the population situation. So because when you bring up population, people think, oh, you must agree with the power structure. I never said that. I absolutely never said that. In fact, the power structure and the paradigm they have set up is part of the reason why we have such a population issue. They have done everything to help it happen, and now they're doing exactly the wrong things to help or to change this problem, if we just simply look at mathematics, we've gone from 1 billion to 7 billion in 100 years. If we keep that rate, do we really think we're going to reach 50 billion and be around? Not going to happen. It's not going to happen. Reality is reality, and I think, again, if the population needs to go, those that have helped create this problem should be the first to go. Those that have helped set up this fossil fuel paradigm and this circus of insanity with pesticides and chemical spraying, and these people are at the core of why we're in this mess to begin with. But the fact is, there's an awful lot of people in society who don't want to do the right thing, who don't want to be responsible with what's their share of planet Earth. There's only so much to go around. That's a simple fact. And a lot of people don't like talking about this, but in an industrialized situation, you can't, without having industry, which is what brought us to this point to begin with, you can't do certain things. You can't irrigate deserts. You can't turn unarable land into farmland. You have to have industry to do that. Well, as soon as you have industry, then we're right back in the same problem. So it's a complex situation, but the bottom line is, when you have, as Greg mentioned, an official here who won't answer this question, I mean, Greg, you talked to him. Did it seem clear that, your feeling was that that's certainly a part of the equation that he wouldn't allude to, right?
Oh, yeah, like I said, he wouldn't touch it with a 10-foot pole. And so I rephrased the question in a slightly different way to hopefully come up with a different answer. And it was, again, address every other point, but don't touch that one. So to me, that is an answer. It's like we talked about off air, Dane, when my brother says about the geoengineering, my brother being a pilot, well, that's what I see every day. Let's go fishing. Let's not talk about it. That's what I see every day. Well, is that what you saw every day when you were a child? Just divert. Don't answer the question. If you don't have an answer, that just divert.
Isn't that why we're in this mess, though, when you have so much, with the whole notion that there would be a eugenics program going on is so alarming to so many people. They simply refuse to face it. It's just too alarming. So, in a sense, you're caught in this position where it's hard to communicate that to people because they don't want to hear it. At the same time, they have to hear it, or we're all done. It's a tough situation. More and more people are waking up, and at this point, the only reason they're waking up is because they're not going to have a choice. When they're tearing out the orchards and the food supply is dropping and the price of food is going through the roof, the bees are dying. We don't have any insects here at all. We're completely crashing. I have not seen a tree frog in 2 months. It used to sound like the Ozarks around here. There's nothing. There's nothing left. We're there. It's crashing now. So, again, for those that are active right now in this fight, and there's a bunch that are, I hear from a lot of wonderful people, I implore them, don't lose heart, that those around you who have chosen to stay in denial are going to be forced to wake soon. If you continue to plant the right seeds, they'll be of some use when they choose to face this problem. So it's up to all of us to keep planting seeds, even with those who don't want it. That soil will be fertile soon enough as they are forced to wake up, as they cannot continue in their denial or their former paradigm starts to blow apart. It's starting to blow apart now. So if we all continue to plant seeds, they'll have no choice but to sprout soon, and it will change the flavor of what we face. We face challenges unimaginable, but there's solace in facing these issues completely without any reserve, facing it head on.
I think you make a great point there, Dane, because I see a lot of folks getting discouraged at their own families, and this obviously starts at the family level, that their families think they should stop looking up, and their families think that they should have some fun, and their families think this or that or the other. Keep working on your families. Keep working on your friends. Do not give up. Do not get off Facebook. Because like you said, Dane, those seeds that are planted now that we may think are not going to sprout, we may think they're never going to sprout. As things get bad enough, people are going to remember what they were told.
And this time is like no other in that sense, that unlike a lot of subjects at a lot of different points in time in history that are not in any way comparable to what we face now, this issue of climate engineering and the environment imploding, you can't hide from that. You simply can't hide from that. And those walls are imploding by the day. So this is where I would suggest if people truly want to abandon the angst that they feel with all this, that angst often comes from being pulled in two different directions at once. Many people are in activism because they want to feel like they've done their part so they can go back to whatever personal pursuit of pleasure they had. And that just doesn't work, because this equation is not going to just turn out in some way like a lot of movies or fairy tales. We face unimaginable challenges. But if you make your treasure lie in facing the fight with everything, and not just halfway, not just trying to make yourself feel better so you can go back to whatever it is you want to do, if it's baseball or whatever other activities people do, if you focus everything on this, that's where solace lies, and not being divided in two different directions and doing it halfway. Solace lies in giving it everything you have, and we are on the stretch. It's as you're rounding the last turn and you're heading toward the tape, that's where it's decided who was really in the race to win. And if we have to give it everything we have, everything. Russ, if you can open up the phone lines, and if people call in, I want to let as many people call in as possible if we have more. So if you can ask a question as soon as you can, and we'll try to answer it, and we'll try to let as many people call in as possible. Go ahead, Russ.
Yeah, the call-in number is 718-717-8296. That's 717-717-8296. One thing I like to bring up, Dane, is, people talk about the trade. We see this happening every day, and of course there's a large multinational effort through mass media, mainstream media, to convince people that these lines we're seeing covering the sky are condensation trails. Helicopters use jet turbines to power their blades. And all of these jets that we see flying, at least initially, for the first many years, I saw them were extremely low altitudes. So where are the massive plumes coming from the jet turbines in helicopters if they produce so much condensation? Just another point to throw into the bank that people need to consider when they're being told this lie about condensation.
That's a great point, Russ. And this is where I was trying to encourage people to think about whatever you're told or whatever you read. Think about it. Look into it. Before you start telling others and running with a story, understand it a little bit. In fact, what you just said, clearly, that's obvious. And even on the basic spraying as a whole, rational thought should dictate you can't have a grid pattern one day and nothing the next. You can't have a trail that looks like it was cut with a knife and just stops, just turning on and off. The film is there. I mean, rational thought should kick in for people. And the kind of stories that circulate, and I just did a post on this 2 days ago, there's a person that's pushing the notion that power plant cooling towers are putting out all the moisture for the storms. And this is about comparable to saying some guy standing on his house with a garden hose putting out all the moisture for the storm. It's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. Now, there may be some sort of ground-based, we look at ship tracks and the proposals to use ships to put particulates in the atmosphere to form artificial cloud cover. That's one thing. Cloud cover is one thing. But enough moisture to produce rainstorms is another thing completely. Where you have smoke can cover the whole horizon. Those are particulates that are light and go aloft easily. But is that smoke cloud going to produce rain? Of course not. Of course not. So there's a very big difference between something that might be able to produce artificial cloud cover and producing rain. Water is extremely heavy. The ability of natural clouds to carry moisture is astounding. And the notion that a power plant cooling tower could put out moisture for storms is ludicrous, but a lot of people have bought into this. So all I'm saying is, when you have, in that case, if people stop to think, if you have something that amounts to, the size of several Olympic swimming pools for moisture for one of these cooling towers, mathematically, it's a total impossibility. Just think about things before you run with the story. Just like what you just mentioned, Russ, that should be obvious. Why aren't the helicopters putting out?
Yeah, or even ground-based power. There are power stations in some locations that use jet turbines. There are some boats that have been souped up, cars. Where is all the condensation blowing massive plumes 100 feet wide coming out of these jet turbines? people just have to think, and it's very hard because there's so much information that one of the blockages is people can't conceive the idea that all of this media is coordinated. But I want people to think about this, Dane, is that all of these nations are coordinated. All of this stuff is happening in many different nations and began roughly in coordination with each other in many, many nations at the same time. We have callers lined up whenever you're ready to.
Yeah, you can take one in, Russ, and this is, again, where people have a responsibility to take their compass heading every day. You don't take it once and then proceed for the next several years. You have to, every single day, examine the data, examine the dots, where they fit, how have they changed, how has the picture changed. So everybody needs to diligently look for data, because otherwise everybody operates on their preconceptions and ideology, and that just simply is not helpful for our cause. So keep the message simple, straightforward, solid, and verifiable, and we'll gain traction. Go ahead, Russ.
Absolutely. Sometimes, Greg, what was that person used? Sky pharmacology? Is that what that person used?
Air pharmacology.
Air pharmacology. The word pharmakia is the Greek root word for the word pharmacology or pharmaceutical. That's where we get that from. And the original meaning of that word was to drug or to poison. Just something to think about. Caller with a phone number that ends in 408. Who are we speaking with?
Hi, this is Corey.
Hi, Corey.
Hi, Corey.
Hi. I just wanted to let you know I have told a lot of people to tune in, and I am so pleased to hear you guys take the gloves off and say what needs to be said, which is to talk about the New World Order, eugenics, because we all know it. And a lot of people get very frustrated because in many formats, those dots are not connected. So I just wanted to call in and thank you.
Thank you for that, Corey. And, there's no question that's going on. When people deny that, I think an approach they can better understand that I've tried to use at times is when they reject that notion, if we can point this out, that at minimum, we know what's being sprayed on us is toxic. We know that those in power know that it's toxic, and they're still doing it. So any way you slice it, does it not boil down to eugenics? It is. Even whatever way people want to wrap it up, it's a 2 and 2 equals 4 equation. Whatever the other motives, weather modification and so forth, all of which is a huge part of this, you still really logically, rationally, mathematically can't deny that it is a eugenics effect, no matter what. Can't get around that. So,
it is.
No government should have the right or ability to spray their citizens without their consent. I think we can all agree on that.
No human has.
Insider says.
Yeah. Go ahead, Dean. Go ahead.
Let's see what this insider says real quick. And this is off the communication that I'll publish in a couple days. Now, what he says is, like I told Dane on the phone, the larger models move toward the larger balance equation of the entire U.S. And if they have to kill off many trees in California, or people in this case, to lower damage factors across the expanse of the U.S., the trees there are going to take a hit. He has this is just an expression of their feeling they have a right to decide who lives, who dies, where there's water, where there's not. This is an astounding mentality, and the only reason this can be this way, the only reason things can be so off the rails, is because so many people refuse to do their part to put the train back on the rails. They refuse. They're too caught up in their personal pursuits of pleasure, which is exactly what the power structure wants. But now the ship is going down. We're all ankle deep in water on the deck, and this is a one-way trip if people do not help now. So, Corey, your point's well taken, and certainly there's no denying. There's no denying with all the other aspects with the climate engineering, there's no denying eugenics is a part of it. None.
Right. The other thing is that, with fluoride in our water, the vaccines, the biolabs, all those things, our food, GMOs, they know that when they combine them, we can't sort the variables, or as easily sort the variables. For instance, doing a combination vaccine, how do you know which one it is, that results in some kind of catastrophic, health debilitating side effects? They know that you can't sort it out. So we're getting hit on, multiple levels at the same time. And this is a huge one. We all breathe. So, and we all drink water. So anyway, I'm going to hang up, but thank you so much.
Corey,
thanks for what you've done.
Thank you. And to elaborate a little bit on what Corey said, there is also, you can't distinguish between these various factors. And also we have synergistic toxicity. All these components being very harmful in and of themselves, when they're combined, the synergistic toxicity can increase toxicity radically. So very bad mix, all of it meant for certain purposes. Thank you for the point, Corey. Russ, go ahead.
Yeah, and I just want to contribute to this. There was a man named Frederick Henry Osborne. In the 30s, he was very, very prominent. This is in the 30s. He was very, very prominent in U.S. politics. He was appointed by President Roosevelt to chair the Civilian Advisory Committee on Selective Service. Okay, he later, after that, notoriety with Roosevelt to show the public or the government support of this man, he chaired the Army Committee on Welfare and Recreation. He was a brigadier general, chief of morale branch of the War Department. Then he became a Princeton's Curriculum Committee and Psychology Department Council co-founder of Eugenics Quarterly, which was eventually named Social Biology. Okay, very prominent in politics, supported by our president at the time. This was in the 30s. Listen to what this man said. The Germans, this is what he said. The German sterilization program is apparently an excellent one, although it is generally doubted whether equal or better results might have been obtained by a voluntary rather than a compulsory system. He said that in 1937. Another quote, he said, taken altogether, recent developments in Germany constitute perhaps the most important experiment which has ever been tried. And finally, listen to this. Eugenics goals are most likely to be attained under another name than eugenics. Look him up. Frederick Henry Osborne, part of U.S. political history. Caller with a phone number that ends in 208. Who are we talking with?
Hi, my name's Andrew, calling from Scotland.
Hi, Andrew.
Hi.
Andrew?
Dane, a couple of questions. One, earlier on you mentioned that relative humidity was going to be going down.
Yes.
Surely with all the sort of condensation that's going on with the spraying, then it would be going up, surely.
No, it doesn't, and it hasn't. And I encourage you to look at the data on this. It's absolutely not disputed in the scientific community. As you fill the atmosphere with these particulates, you change the radiative forcing, you change evaporation rates, and this is why this is a glaring red flag for climate engineering, that depending on the bandwidth of UV that is coming through these light scattering particulates, it radically affects evaporation, again, global dimming. So this is completely going against the laws of physics, that we have an atmosphere that's warming, and we know that for every degree of warming, the atmosphere should carry 7% more moisture. How can it be going down? And it is. And I encourage you to look at the science data. I'll post this in several days. It has been going down since the late 40s, contrary to the laws of physics. It can only happen because of the light scattering particles in the atmosphere. We know global dimming is 20 to 25% today. And this certainly is related to climate engineering. This is the point and purpose of these programs. So this is not disputed scientifically. I encourage you to investigate the relative humidities atmospherically, globally, not just in one isolated area, and they are absolutely positively going down, not up.
Okay, right. Another thing, in a previous broadcast, you mentioned something about military airline pilots having a spider club or something. What was that again?
What I mentioned was that in the dialogue with these pilots, this is a term they referred to amongst themselves. So this is not something I can back up or verify. I was simply conveying what I was told.
Right, and it was called a spider club, was it?
No, I believe the term was that they referred to themselves as spiders or something like this. You know, it was just a term that was given to me that I'm passing on. So I think it's hard to argue that they look like that in the sky, but this is not any kind of fact I'm trying to stand on. I was simply passing on what I was told was the dialogue between these pilots.
Okay, that's fine. That's the two questions.
I would encourage you to examine the relative humidity issue, or anybody else that's listening. This is fact. It is publicized. In fact, even Forbes magazine in January of this year publicized this issue in their attempt to deny that there's any warming on the planet. And certainly that's a magazine we would associate with the power structure. But you have even some mainstream publications now talking about the fact that this relative humidity is dropping, not going up. And this simply defies the laws of physics. So what's the missing component here? It's geoengineering and the light scattering particulates, which are also desiccants, which absorb and accrete moisture, change evaporation rates. This is the element in the equation that's not being admitted to by the climate science community. So people can investigate atmospheric relative humidity. It's going down, not up.
Dane, one thing I'd love to contribute here is that I was living in Western New York when I began seeing the spray activity over our heads. And one of the most notorious things that happened to me that was just shocking is for months, when I would wake up in the morning, my eyes were so dry that I could not literally open them. And I've heard from a lot of people who told me the same thing. I had to massage my eyelids in the morning in order to generate enough moisture in order to open my eyes. And some days this was extremely dramatic, and other days it didn't happen at all. But it was usually... visually, as far as we could tell, it was completely in sync with the amount of spraying that was taking place, and I've never experienced anything like this before in my life. It just came on suddenly as the spraying started.
Russ, there's a pharmaceutical for that, Russ. It's called Restasis. You can go get some Restasis to take care of that.
Well, great.
I'm being facetious.
So
create the problem,
Create the problem and sell the solution.
Yeah,
absolutely. But this was astonishing to me. The other thing, Dane, and this came right with the spraying. This happened right in sync with the spraying activity, and it was very, very dramatic. And a lot of people reported the same thing to me. The other thing is the halos around lights. Is that very often if you have a really, really moist evening, you can see the moisture scattering the light from around street lights at night. We have all the time where you feel no moisture in there. It's extremely dry, yet you see a tremendous amount of reflective particulates around streetlights at night. For anyone who pays attention, very, very noticeable, very pronounced. So just a couple things to add. We do have another caller. Caller with your number that ends in 240. Welcome. Who are we talking to?
Hi, Russ, Greg, and Dane. This is Alec. I've called a few times before. I've been listening to you guys, I think, pretty much since the beginning. And I really appreciate your show. And it's very strange. I'm sure you guys experienced something similar to this. And I continue to speak with my friends and colleagues, and I can see that a lot of them get it, but there is sometimes this kind of look of fear in their eyes, and it's kind of like the Cassandra syndrome, where we're the people who dare to speak what really is unspeakable to them. And, as I'm listening today, as you've been speaking about the eugenics part of this, which I think we can see not only in the geoengineering, but in the food and in vaccines and so many other things. As I look around here in New York, I've been watching over the last few years as people that I know age and get sicker. And I'm very grateful for the things that I've learned from, your websites and just from other investigation. I feel like I'm pretty healthy. I actually feel healthier than I used to feel. But a lot of the people that I care about are not that way. And in a sense, I think that eugenics is working. And I think that people are dying. And it's really hard to be aware of that, knowing that we're in a very analogous situation to the Germans under National Socialism, where things were going on around them and they had a controlled media like we do, and they also had a high social pressure to not question because it was unpatriotic. And in a sense, I think that we're all kind of Germans now. And so
it's sort of a McCarthyism kind of era right now. I agree, even with what's happening in Ukraine and other places. Clearly, Russia has been completely set up in this case, and not that I'm a fan of that government or their past, but in this case, they've been set up, and our country is, in the case of ISIS, for example, our country started ISIS, they spawned ISIS, they armed ISIS, but if you question that, somehow you're questioning something you shouldn't, just like 9/11. I mean, what's the stigma around 9/11? I mean, how can buildings collapse in their own footprint? And Building 7 clearly demoed, and that what you described is certainly the case. But I hope everybody does not become deterred by that. Continue to speak out, because our situation now is unlike any other. That it can't be hidden much longer. The power structure knows it. The things that are happening right now can't be hidden. It's unlike any other challenge ever in human history. So I hope that while the ship goes down, if we can take one leap in the right direction, it's to stop the climate engineering, and it's going to take all of us getting past that resistance from other people and telling them the truth, no matter what.
Well, Dane, the power structure thinks that they can intimidate. They want us to run in fear. They want us to act like animals. They want us to not acknowledge the truth. And I just don't see how human beings, if you call yourself a human being, we are our brother's keeper. I've said that over and over. How can you not wake people up? How can you not reach out to every single person that you come in contact with? How can you not take any savings that you might have and invest it in the few precious months that we might still have left to make a difference? I just don't see how you can.
On that note, too, again, to back up what was said with the caller, that in this case, the vast majority of people who think they're on the inner circle, who think they're going to survive what's coming, will not if we stay on this track. They will not survive. So unlike any other cause at any other time, with this issue, once those people who are helping to carry out the insanity realize that they're going down with the ship as well, their children are going down with the ship as well, that their participation in the insanity will not save them, but in fact will contribute to their own demise, at that point, again, unlike any other time with any other issue, this issue could cause mass defection in the power structure insanity at some point soon. If we continue to sound the alarm, plant the seeds, when those helping to carry out the insanity realize they are going down with the ship, I think we'll see a lot of rats abandon that ship. We need to get to that point quick.
Yeah, these people are nothing without the people below them. The higher-ups are nothing without the people below them. They can do nothing without that help.
That's exactly right, Russ. I was telling Dane earlier that 26% back in the 90s when they did the study at 29 Palms Marine Base, 26% of young Marines said that they would go along with orders to disarm the American people. Evidently, and I've had communication with Chuck Baldwin from Chuck Baldwin Live, great guy, Christian fella. He says that number's up to 66%, 2/3, and they're going to need those guys to disarm the American people if that's the decision that they choose to make.
Yeah, it should be very frightening when you look at history. After each disarmament event, there was a mass killing by governments. And
that's exactly right.
Yeah, and people need to wake up. We're living in very dangerous times, and this is not a slack subject. Caller, thank you for calling in, caller. Caller with your phone number that ends in 20. Welcome. Who are you? Who are you speaking with?
This is Bob from Texas.
Hi, Bob.
Hey, Bob.
How y'all doing today?
Good. How are you, sir?
Oh, pretty good. I work with Dane some on disinformation directory and things like that, so I'm real familiar with his work and everything. I just have a couple of points I'd like to make with the eugenics thing y'all were talking about. I strongly believe this program has more to do with eugenics than it does weather modification. I think weather's being used, certainly, to disperse these poisons, and I think it could be used as a red herring should this come up. Should this finally be exposed, it could be something that they fall back on. Oh, well, we're doing this for your own good. We're
exactly.
Doing it for the good of the planet, when in fact they're poisoning us all.
This is why it's imperative that people understand that climate engineering is in fact fueling the planetary meltdown, not mitigating it. So if they try to push this as a final last-ditch planet-saving effort, enough people will already know that this is not a cure, but a curse. So that's where the education of others becomes so important. Even if they reject that message right now, we all must be diligent and continue our efforts, because the walls are closing in by the day, and those seeds will sprout soon enough. Just people need to not get discouraged, but to keep marching. Every day, move the ball forward.
And Dane, this is a really important part. This is what you're trying to teach the academics, is you're trying to teach them that what they're doing is having the opposite effect of what they're being told it does, right?
It is, but this is extremely difficult with people whose cup is already full, if you will. You can't add to it. They think they know it all. And when you take the sort of person that's on the inside, this engineer with these programs that Greg and I have communicated with, his perspectives are incredibly tainted, absolutely beyond belief. And they absolutely know that if word got out, there would be hell to pay. And in fact, he makes this particular person makes a comment about this in the letter I'll read in several days. That I'll read a quote right now. The truth is spun often, and likewise, the truth on climate moderation issues are not shared with the public. Of course, they're not. And this is a direct quote from his communication. As the public would demand, most of them that cause these serious problems be hung or shot by firing squad. They know how the public is going to react if this word ever gets out, and we must break the dam of silence. All we have to do is put a crack in the dam, and they won't be able to stop the flow. And all of us can contribute to that. So no matter how much resistance we get from our family members, from our friends around us, if we pass on simple, credible, solid data, don't wander off into rabbit holes with all sorts of intricacies, simple, straightforward. We're being sprayed like rats. It's highly toxic. These programs are real. They're going on. It's affecting all of us. Keep your message simple. Pass on data. Help us to bring this to light every single day. We just need to put a crack in the dam, and the dam will blow apart.
And this is why, Dane, that they will stop at nothing to disinform the public. They will put geoengineering trails in children's television. They now have a NASA program for school children. They now have it written into textbooks. They now have books that they're creating that look like they were written in the 50s, and I have no doubt that they were produced and made to look old. And they have disinformants who are paid by tax dollars for spreading that information all over. So the disinformation campaign knows no limits and has no limits in funding. Caller with the phone number that ends. Oh, go ahead, Dane. Go ahead.
No, I'm going to finish that one sentence I read again, because, and this is why everything you said is exactly right. To repeat this one sentence: climate change moderation issues are not shared with the public, as the public would demand that most of them that cause these serious problems be hung or shot by firing squad. Direct quote from this person on the inside who knows damn good and well if word gets out, the public will demand justice. Go ahead, Russ.
The limit that the means that they will go to disinform the public know no end, to the point of producing videos that look like they were made a long time ago. I've actually seen a movie where they injected it. On
that note, though, let's remember this, though, Russ, that these programs have been going on since the late 40s, and I sent you a relative humidity chart that defies the laws of physics. The only explanation is climate engineering from 1948. It's the only explanation. So on some of the older movies, people should consider that they may, in fact, have been there in the skies above. They may have made a point to be there so they would have a record of it. But with the other things, the animated films, of course, it's added in. But, the bottom line is a lot of conditioning has gone on, a lot of effort.
That's true.
That's where they've overplayed their hand, I think, is even the average human looks at a cartoon like Cars and says, "You got to be kidding me."
That's where it's most blatant, because we could argue the films. We could argue on the films, but there's no arguing the animation. I agree. Russ, you want to grab that?
The thing is I've seen a film where they inserted. I saw the original, and then I saw the remake, and it was actually added in intentionally.
Yeah, I saw that too.
I don't argue that. Then, if you've seen that, I don't argue that at all. So we could have both things going on. We absolutely could have both going on. It's not necessarily this or that. So I don't argue what you saw, buddy. Not at all.
Absolutely, I saw it myself. We got a couple callers here. Let's see if we can squeeze it in. Real quick, caller. 24. Your phone and number ends in 24. Welcome. Who are we talking with? Oh, I'm sorry. We're out of time. Sorry we didn't get you in. One more. Sorry, callers, we didn't get you in, but this is GeoEngineering Watch Radio. We're here at 12 noon Pacific time every Saturday at UCY.tv. At 3 o'clock Eastern time, please join us at UCY TV every Saturday, 12 noon Pacific, 3 o'clock Eastern. We'll be back next Saturday. Until then, visit geoengineeringwatch.org.
Blue skies are golden white, lines appear, them there is not
Hello?